wasn't looking at you. All right. Actually, that's a really great question. You guys, we're obviously having a conversation with one another, but do you guys to go back?
Hello, cocktailers. Thank you all so much for coming out tonight. This is, I think, our fifth. Is it our fifth Heleo Cocktails and Conversations event? And we are so grateful to the Soho House for helping us throw these gatherings and help to share this. You may have figured out that the wine is free. The other cocktails cost some money, and they're worth it, by the way. But the wine also tastes good, and it's free. It's courtesy of Soho House and Heleo, and there's food in the back. And these events are about both the cocktails and the conversation, and it's great to see we have some solid cocktailers in this room. And the Levo League is partly to thank for that, because we've got a great turnout of some wonderful people from the Levo League community. So thank you guys for extending the invite to that to the Levo League community. Thank you all for coming out. So for those of you who don't know what Heleo is about, our mission is to connect writers and readers in powerful new ways, elevating ideas that matter. And so this event tonight is being shared, is being live streamed on Facebook. It's one of the ways we help connect writers and readers in powerful new ways. And one of the ways we described ourselves recently, and I tested this in advance in a conversation with Tiffany and Ann, which is that the TED conference, which we love, and the whole TED institution, which is an amazing institution, is a platform for monologues. And Heleo is a platform for dialogues. We really believe in the power of conversation, and we think Socrates was right. Conversations, the dialectic is the way to get at truth, and we love conversations, particularly between fascinating people. We have two amazing people here tonight, two of the newest members of the Heleo community. And I'm going to pass the mic to Gabby, our extraordinary Director of Audience Development at Heleo, to introduce our amazing conversationalists.
No, I'm just kidding. Hi, I'm Gabby, as he said. I wrote down their introduction because I'm afraid that I'm going to gush for hours if I don't follow a script, so that's for you guys. You're welcome. Rufus thought it was best that I would introduce them both because I won't shut up about them in general. So this is my event, really. I'm just in heaven. So first of all, Ann Shoket. Ann has been shaping the national conversation about and for millennial women for years. You might know her as the editor-in-chief of 17 magazine. You might know her, yes, one of the founding members of the CosmoGIRL magazine, yes. I know her from all of those things and also being a guest judge on America's Next Top Model. That's just me. So she's amazing. She just wrote a book. It's coming up in the spring. You should pre-order it now. You can. You must. It's called The Big Life. Embrace the mess, work your side hustle, find a monumental relationship, and become the badass babe you were meant to be. Basically, my Bible, my future Bible. Yeah. Yeah, right now, it's going to be my Bible. So I'm really excited. You should all pre-order it. I'm thrilled to have Ann in our network, and I feel so privileged to work with both of them. So Tiffany. Tiffany is another one of our Heleo members. She's also my idol. Tiffany is Chief Leadership Officer for Levo League, so maybe you know of her. She was also, I wrote all these things down because I love her. She was president of the White House Project, one of the founding members of Lean In, and she just basically, these are your two Bibles that you need to read. She's author of Drop the Ball. It's coming out in February. You should also pre-order it now. I've read it. It's amazing. And basically, she tells you to embrace your imperfections, just basically rely a little bit more on your support system and expect a little less of yourself. And something that totally resonates with me because I'm like a huge neurotic perfectionist. So I'm really excited to introduce both of them. Please follow them both on Facebook. They're amazing. And you can watch this live on Facebook. So thanks, guys.
Thanks so much. We're excited to be here. And when the team at Heleo reached out to me to do this, I immediately said, I want to do this with Ann. And nice. I said that I wanted to do it with Ann because I was pretty confident that regardless of what happened with all of you in the room, that Ann and I, because she's one of the members of my tribe, would just have cocktails and conversations the way we normally do.
Yeah, we don't get to see each other enough, so we have like much to talk about.
Right, exactly. So we're just going to have a conversation with one another. And I'm really excited about it. And I have to, full disclosure, I'm a little nervous tonight. And part of the reason why I'm nervous is because Ann is a journalist and she sent her questions. And they're amazing questions that she's going to ask. And when you're someone who does a lot of public speaking and you're in the public eye, you have like talking points and you have things that you often want to say. And my first inclination when I read Ann's questions was, well, I have real answers to these questions, but answering them truthfully would require a level of vulnerability and honesty that I'm not quite sure I can muster up with 100 people in front of me. So I got really great advice today from someone who told me that I should absolutely tell the truth because then you don't have to keep track of the lies that you tell. No political commentary here. And so that's what I'm going to do.
Okay, I think it's...
But I'm kind of scared.
No, I think we're going to have... I mean, I don't want to like set the bar too high, right? But because you know, my questions that I sent to you they were very succinct, right? They didn't go on, and they were...
Mine did.
These are the things I'm dying to know about you, about everybody. Like the questions, so they're part of the book, right? They're part of my book about how do you become the badass babe that you're meant to be. And these are the questions that I want to ask everybody. And these are the questions I feel like you should all ask yourselves and ask your friends as well. So they're meant to like pry and to get to like those vulnerable places because, you know, why waste your time? Right? We have to go there. So should I go first?
Sure.
I'm going to go first. So thank you guys for cheering for 17 Magazine, which I loved so much and has a phenomenal place in my heart. And one of the things that I know in my heart to be true is I have never met a successful woman, period, who can't put her finger on what her dream was when she was 16 years old, of what, like, the thing that she imagined her life would be. And so can you all remember what it is that you wanted to be when you were 16 years old? I think that you spend the rest of your life trying to live up to that idea, right? To try and honor that your inner 16-year-old. And so my question for you is, like, what did you imagine that your life would be like when you were 16 years old?
You're not going to answer. You're not going to ask them in the order that you sent them.
Oh no! Oh no!
So when I was 16, you know, I couldn't remember imagining what my job would be, what city I would live in, who my friends would be. Like every 16-year-old, I'm sure, I had ideas about what I wanted, and I was a hard worker, but I had an enormous amount of insecurity. And what I fantasized about, honestly, was that the reassurances that my mother gave to me would come true one day. So all of the things that I was teased about when I would come home and I would say, none of the boys like me because I don't have big boobs like Krista. And she would say, honey, one day, I promise you, one day you're going to walk into a room with your flat chest and you're going to be beautiful and you're going to be bold and you're going to feel good about yourself. And I would think, it's almost as if I didn't believe her. But deep down inside, I imagined that one day it would be true. When I came home and I was upset because they were calling me a nerd and because I was a bookworm, I have always been obsessed with books. And she would say, honey, I promise you. One day, people are going to respect you because you're smart. People are going to respect you for your intellect. And I would be like, it didn't feel like it was true. But in my heart of hearts, I fantasized that one day I would be the fantasy that my mom put out there.
And was there like the moment that you were like, oh, wait a minute, this is what my mom was talking about. This is what mom meant.
I definitely am living the fantasy that my mom put out there. And I wish that I had have either believed her or I wish that I had have understood that much sooner. And if I had advice for younger women, I would say, believe it so much earlier. I feel terrible that I spent so much of my life not believing it.
But don't you feel like you have to like earn it a little bit, right? That kind of confidence to walk into the room and feel comfortable in your own skin. I don't know. I don't know anybody who magically gets there in their life. I feel like you have to go through all of that agonizing crap in order to get to the place where you're like, I'm done with the agonizing crap.
Yes, but so I'm going to ask you one of my questions.
This is really important. Cheers.
Cheers.
It's nice to see you.
It's so lovely to see you and to actually connect in between, and between husbands and babysitters and traveling and all that stuff.
And cheers to you guys. Cheers.
So, Ann, one of the questions that I had for you, which is related to the insecurity, has to do with the fact that you spent a great deal of your career in the hearts and minds of millennial women. So your job was to understand their motivations, their aspirations of teenagers. And I really believe that, because I'm also obsessed with millennials right now, that we do have something different with this generation of women in terms
100%.
of how they feel about themselves, their expectations about what they're going to do in the world. I feel that I do experience the confidence and I experience a level of risk-taking that I feel like I wouldn't have ever done. Literally, I was at an event. I moderated a panel at Time Warner 2 days ago. And there was an intern there that had planned the event. And after the panel, I was standing there with 3 other senior executive women, and we were having a conversation. And I made an argument, and the intern had a counter argument. And without even being asked, she just said, actually, I really think something different. And she gave her argument, and she had really good evidence, and it was really brilliant. And when I went downstairs and I walked out the door, I thought, 20 years ago, there's no way that standing there with that group of women, I would have even said anything. I would have had to have been waited to call on. So I'm interested in how you've gotten so good at garnering the respect from, but also really understanding this generation that I do think has a little bit more confidence than we did.
Absolutely. So I feel like we grew up together. So and I really do. I've been there, I was the editor-in-chief of 17, and then I was one of the launch editors of CosmoGIRL. So that was back in 1999. And even before that, I was at another teen magazine, which doesn't exist anymore. And I feel like we have grown up together. My sort of my inner 25-year-old is alive and well, and I check in with her all the time, and she thinks this is pretty badass. And I really do. I feel like I feel connected in a way that I actually don't feel like I am connected with women who are my own age. Like I just don't. I don't know. I've always felt younger and young at heart, and. But one of the things that is so different about this generation of millennial women is how they think about career and ambition and success. And so when I was coming up, and maybe when you were coming up too, nobody ever said to me that you should do things that make you happy or do things that are your passion. What I was told was do something that you're good at. And so I was good at asking nosy questions. And so I became a reporter. And I loved reading magazines, and eventually I started out as a business reporter and moved into magazines, and I just loved magazines. And it wasn't until maybe my 3rd or 4th job that I found the thing, like the spark of the thing that felt like a passion, which was talking to young women about the things that matter and about how you become who you're meant to be. But because I've had such a long view of the changing values and tastes of young women, I can see how this generation is so different, right? That we used to talk about leadership, and it was the alpha girl, right? It was the girl who sat at the front of the class and she was like, me,
that
right?
Was me.
Right.
That was me.
But it's like success and ambition is not just for the girl who's at the front of the class, right? It's for everyone. Every single young woman I meet wants to make her mark on her own terms, in her own way. And what's even more important than that is that she wants the world to bend to the way she wants it to be. Like that intern who you just mentioned, right? Like that's stunning. If I was standing around a bunch of senior media folks when I was whatever the intern's age is, 21 years old, I would have just stood there, right? And like stared. But here this woman is that she has an opinion and she wants to be heard, and why not, right? And so when we talk about like entitled millennials, they have something to say. Say it. It's great. It's amazing. It's a phenomenal change to honor your ambition and your dreams and to want to make the world work the way you want it to work.
Absolutely.
All right. So now it's time for me to ask Tiffany a question. All right. So back to your idea of what your 16-year-old self wanted. What does your big life look like now? Like what part of that 16-year-old dream is reflected in your life now?
Well, I love this concept of the big life. Ever since the first time you talked about the big life, I thought, I want to have the big life. And for me, the big life is about big perspective. So it's about having a big lens. And because all of us have different definitions of success and we all want different things, I imagine the big life to simply be having clarity about what matters most to you, in my case, what matters most to me, and being able to leverage my highest and best use to achieve what matters most to me. What matters most to me right now is advancing women and girls. That's pretty much why I'm on the planet. My life is very simple. I already know what's on my tombstone, and I'm just kind of project managing my life backwards.
Did it take you a long time to get to that idea? Because I don't know. Did you always know that was your mission? Because you've said that to me. I think you said that to me the first moment that we met.
Every time I talk to anybody.
Right. And then that's amazing, right? To be able to say to the world and to everybody you meet, this is my purpose. This is my meaning. This is what matters. But I kept thinking, how do you get there?
Well, unbeknownst, I'm sure there are some people who arrive at it by walking down the street and the sky is open and there's this thunder and they fall to their knees and all of a sudden the rain starts pouring and they think to themselves, I'm here to save orcas or something like that. But I don't think that for most of us, that's how it happens. I believe that, your purpose, if you have one, is simply a commitment that has been inspired by a series of experiences that you've had in your life. And I love that definition of purpose because it means that you can engineer it. A commitment is a decision. You can decide, this is what I care about. This is what's important to me. This is what I'm going to commit to. And I can guarantee you that if I spend an hour with you over a few of these, we could do enough story mining in your life to create enough experiences that add up to that commitment. My commitment, to answer your question, was inspired by a couple of things. One is very personal. My mom had a really difficult time after my parents' divorce. My mom stayed home with me and my sister and chose to do that and would not take back any of that. But one of the things that I discovered when my parents got divorced is that all of the social and economic and political capital that I thought was our family's really just belonged to my dad, who was the one who had gone to college on the GI Bill and gotten the PhD in theology and was a pastor and had the public persona. And so...
How old were you when that
16.
Happened? And that's a big realization for 16. Yeah, that was did that help shape your 16-year-old dream?
I wouldn't have articulated it that way at the time, but I certainly felt wait a minute, the choices that women make a big impact on their lives and on who we are. So that's the big life for me is having clarity about what matters most and leveraging your highest and best use. So basically...
And owning it, right? You own it for yourself. It's something that belongs to you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And not spending your days checking off things on your to-do list that don't actually ladder up to what matters most to you, which is what so many of us end up doing and feeling like, gosh, I'm getting all of this done, but it doesn't feel like I'm really owning anything or it's not amounting to something. And that's largely because what you do is far less important than the difference you make. So that to me is what the big life is.
Is there a piece of your big life that's sort of still on the horizon, that's still foggy, or that doesn't feel like you're there yet?
Yes, there is, but Miss Journalist, it is my turn to ask you a question.
I know, I just want to ask all the questions.
I know, you can't help yourself. So here's what I want to know, because the first time I want to know a lot of things, but one of the things that I want to know that's connected to the big life has to do with this whole concept of being a badass woman and being a badass babe.
Yeah, the badass babes,
For those of you who don't know, Ann hosts a series of dinners for badass babes, and her book talks about what that means, and I've read a little snippet of it, which is amazing. But I would love to understand what exactly, when I met you, I was like, I want to be a badass babe. What do I need to do to be a badass babe? And I want to know, what exactly is that? Is that something that you're just born with, or is it cultivated? Do you just have it or you don't? But can you help us all figure out how to be that?
So I originally wanted to call it Badass Bitches. Can I say that? But that's not nice. So I called it Badass Babes. But the feeling of being badass is like, I'm sure you all remember this feeling, right? Or you can feel this feeling. It's like all the lights turn green, your hair is blowing in the wind and it looks amazing. And you've got, I don't know what is the equivalent for you? What is it that you're like standing tall in the shoes don't hurt.
Or they do, but you look so good in them, it doesn't matter.
Right. You like look good, you feel good, you've got something you're going to, you've been to a place that's amazing, you're like in, I think Oprah calls it like your flow, right? You're in the flow and you feel like the seas are parting for you and all the lights are turning green and the world is bending to your will without you having to do anything. And that's the feeling of being badass, right? That you can walk into any room and own it. And it is not like a magical, it's not inherited. It's not something you're born with. I think that it's a confidence that comes with knowing who you are and knowing what you're good at and having worked really hard to make the world work the way you want it to work. And so I call these women, the women who come and have dinner with me, badass babes, because this is the idea that we all want, right? We all want to feel confident and complex and understood and supported and to feel like you're doing things that make a difference, that your effort not necessarily in a big way, maybe in a big way, but that everything you do matters. And so that's the feeling of being badass. And, I think who doesn't want to feel that way all the time?
I do.
Yeah. Right? Do you feel that way all the time?
No. Hell no.
I don't feel that way all the time. I feel frantic and sweaty 50% of the time. But like the times that I feel my badassness, I'm like, this is great. Can we bottle this? Yeah. So that's the idea. How do you bottle this? That's the idea. All right. My turn again. All right, so let's talk about the thing that we had promised we would talk about, which is work-life balance.
Did we promise we would talk about that?
Did we promise? I think we did. Okay. We said badass babes to bad moms, dropping the ball.
Okay.
Right? Do you guys want to talk about work-life balance? Yeah. Right. I don't know why. I don't know why you want to talk about work-life balance. I think it's not realistic. However, Tiffany has a plan. So I want to know... what does it mean now? Because I actually think it doesn't mean what we think it means. And I want to know what it means for you.
Yeah. So for me, what that means is that I can have a career that's connected to my passion and purpose. It means that I can simultaneously have a juicy all-in partnership with somebody that I care deeply about. It means that in addition to that, at the same time, I can also be raising conscious global citizens. And that in addition, and at the same time, I can also be physically fit and somewhat happy And it can be really messy and sometimes uncomfortable and very scary, but that I don't have to wait or stagger or, as some people say, have a piece of it here and a piece of it there. And for me, it's important that it's connected because for me, it's a very important ecosystem in a very practical way. 2 days ago, what's today? Thursday. So Tuesday afternoon at about 4 in the afternoon, my beloved CEO of Levo, Caroline Gone, asked me to fill in for her for a media spot at 7:20 the next morning. It was a pre-debate media slot with Maria Bartiromo, and she was scheduled to do it. She couldn't do it. She needs me to do it. I have 2 school-age children that normally I would be getting ready and taking to school at 7:20 in the morning. And just practically speaking, while it was a great opportunity, and of course I wanted to say yes to my boss, there were implications that immediately began to cause my anxiety to rise in that moment because she needed a yes from me pretty much on the spot, which is what I gave to her, knowing that I had not figured out any of the logistics to make this happen and that I didn't know how I was going to do it. The reason why the ecosystem is very important is because being able to have opportunities like that also requires that you have a village in place to support you for the logistics. It's like the problem with fairy tales is they never really address the logistics. And what I knew in my head as she was asking me this is that my beloved husband had told me just a few weeks ago, Tiffany, I just want to give you a heads up and let you know that for the next few weeks, I have an early morning meeting with my CEO on Wednesday, Thursday, whatever the day was. He had given me the heads up, and I knew that there was going to be a conflict. So I immediately sent a text message, and the text message was basically to him to say, I have this opportunity. I'm so, so sorry because I know that you told me that you had your meeting, but I am telling you, you need a really healthy, strong, all-in partnership to send a text like this. Right. And to have someone immediately say, don't worry, babe, you're going to be fabulous. I'm going to make my meeting. I'll find a babysitter. It will work. So, and I don't think that I could do what I do in any given day without being strong enough and healthy enough to manage it. So that's why I feel like it's really about figuring out how to have it all. But the secret to having it all is not doing it all and really letting go of the unrealistic expectations about that.
So of all the things you said that you do, the thing that I cannot figure out how you do is work out. All of the things. Now I'm not kidding because I actually read it in her book last night where she said that she gets to work out 5 days a week, right? And so that's the thing that is first to fall off my list. Yeah. I canceled my Pilates class tomorrow morning because I was like, and so it's the very first, and like I think the most important point of what you said is like the self-care, right? Of like taking care that if you are not healthy and strong and energized and centered, then like everything else is going to feel more frantic. You can handle a last minute 7:20 media call if you're feeling good. So, but I want to know, I literally want to know, how do you make the gym a priority? Are you with me? Like the gym is the first thing you've got, you're like, oh, cocktails are coming or a breakfast meeting. Yeah. Or like, oh my God, I have a deadline. I'll just work through lunch instead of going to the gym, right? It's the first thing that goes. How do you do that?
Well, I think there's a couple of things. One is that I really think that we need to expand the definition of what it means to be healthy and fit. And it doesn't mean going to the gym. So there are times when I'm traveling, I can't get up and go to the gym, but I will dance to Beyonce for an entire hour. Like I will dance to the entire Lemonade album and get my...
In your living room?
In my bedroom.
Oh, in the bedroom.
Yeah. Yes, my kids get upset. They're like, Mom, we're trying to sleep and you're like being really loud, and I put them back to bed. So
okay.
I think it's really important, first of all, just to expand the definition. I also am pretty relentless, and I'm very protective of my exercise time. And when people suggest that I should be doing something else other than taking care of myself, I get quite defensive. And I also involve my kids. Sometimes I don't have a babysitter. We happen to live across the street from the park. I run and and down the steps in the amphitheater while they play on the stage. I'm like, okay, you guys can count my sprints as I go back and forth. So I pretty much try to do everything that I can in order to get it in. But for me, now at this point in this phase in my life, I do get up early in the morning to do it. But there was a time.
What time?
You don't want to know what time I get up in the early.
Do you guys want to know?
I get up at 5.
That's like stunning. What's happening at 5 a.m.? Tell me more.
Well, when you're running down the street in Harlem, it's basically the rodents like going back and forth over the sidewalk.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is why you're very inspired to get there quickly.
Yeah, I hear you. All right. I actually do. Very many successful women have told me that they get up very early in the morning, right? And it's the time before you have time to yourself before your kids get up, right? Time to yourself before your husband is up. Time to like. Deepak Chopra told me that 4 a.m., which is not that, but that's when the gurus get up.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So if you're up at 4 a.m.
I will not be up with them.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. Good to know. Nice to, right? Doesn't it make you feel more centered to know?
It does.
Yeah.
And I'm sleeping in.
Yeah.
That's very helpful to know. So here's the thing, though, Anne, in all fairness, you are doing a lot as well. And one of the things that I think is really beautiful is that you've curated a very interesting life for yourself. You've had a very traditional career in the publishing world, but now you are an author and you're a speaker and you're an entrepreneur and you are also a wife and mother. And okay, fine, you don't get to the gym, but you still look good, so it counts.
I get there a lot of times, but it's the first thing to fall off my schedule.
And so how have you been able to manage it?
So I embrace this mess. Like, it is a mess all the time. I don't manage it. I don't feel on top of it a lot of the time. I feel like I've always missed something, or there's 5 other things that have to be done, and then it ends up just being okay, right? I just have to make it okay, and that is actually the advice that I give to young women also, is that you have to say yes to everything. We have phenomenal opportunities in New York City in particular, right? That you have to say yes to all of them to see what sparks for you, what's interesting, who are you going to meet, what are the possibilities, right? And yet when you say yes to everything, you're exhausted and tired and drained, and you've had too much wine and too much coffee and not enough sleep and all of those things, right? And then you spend the whole weekend trying to recover. And I actually think all of that is totally great and okay, as long as you spend the weekend to recover. And I think eventually all your stuff starts to go together. So all my stuff goes together now. It's all around how can I help young women become the badass babes they're meant to be, right? It's the charities that I'm on the board of, the cocktails that I say yes to, the breakfasts I say yes to. It's all about, it all sort of goes in the flow. It didn't always, right? It has been messier. It's been better. It's messy again. But when everything sort of goes together, it feels less frantic.
So are you ever, because I'm really into being intentional about the mess, which I know sounds like an oxymoron, so that the mess doesn't inspire guilt, which I think is really insidious and very damaging. Yeah. So I have plenty of mess, but it's very intentional, chosen mess. And there are huge trade-offs. For example, I'll give you a very practical example. Right now, my 10-year-old son has a rash on his arm. I think it might be eczema. I'm not quite sure what it is. And I probably should have made an appointment to take him to the doctor, I don't know, probably a month ago. But, I've been traveling and doing all of these things, and for me, my highest and best use in raising conscious global citizens is engaging my kids in meaningful conversations every day. So given everything that's going on, I have intentionally chosen to ensure that each day I have a meaningful conversation with this 10-year-old boy about what happened that day, about what's going on at school, about his friends, about the decisions that he's making. And I've intentionally decided that I will schedule a doctor's appointment when I get back from TED Women next week. And I have confidence that it's going to be okay. And if he comes to me and complains and says, "Mom, I'm going to die if," but he's a 10-year-old boy and he seems to be just fine.
Yeah, if it doesn't bug him, right.
So it can be messy, fine. But if like that's your decision and you've been intentional about it,
right.
Is it the end of the world?
I don't know.
Am I a bad mom, Ann?
No. I was like, oh yeah, I got some rashes. I gotta check on. I don't know. Yeah, I think that the intentional mess. I thought you were gonna say that you actually enjoy a mess, right? There's a lot of women who get mojo, whose mojo is in their mess.
Anyone in this room who knows me knows that I do not intentionally like mess.
I used to work for a woman whose desk was a nightmare mess of Post-its and memos. It was covered. But we would be having a meeting, and she would say, oh, I wrote that down. And she would find it. She knew where the paper was. And I actually ran into her recently, and I said to her, this is, you embrace the mess literally. She's like, oh yeah. She's like, I cleaned up, and I couldn't even think straight. And I actually think that some people their mojo is in the mess, right? That it's there. It's not, I actually think a little bit of my mojo is in the mess because I like being on the edge, right? I like filling up my schedule to the point where I can't handle it anymore. I like knowing that there's something next. That it's full, right? It feels busy. I like that.
Can I ask you another question?
Yeah. Okay.
So, because we've done enough conversation now that I think most of you can know that the statement I'm about to make about Ann is very true. One of the things that I love about you, Ann, and one of the reasons why I feel very blessed to be your friend, is that you are not the friend that I feel like I need to make myself smaller with in order to make her feel comfortable. Do any of you know what I'm talking about? Yes. Okay. You're shaking your head. Okay. From the first moment that I spent time with Ann, I felt like I needed to be bigger, that I needed to be badass, that she called forth that in me, and that I really needed to take up that space, and that it would be unacceptable to be anything less. And it really inspires my generosity. In turn, I want to support Ann. I want to help Ann. I want to make sure that everyone buys her book and that it's a New York Times best-selling book.
That's amazing to have a friend like Tiffany.
I feel like when I'm with you that I'm getting the real Ann Shoket, not a magazine airbrushed version of her. And I feel like that's part of the reason why you're very good at what you do, because I think that a lot of young women see that and experience that in you and with you. And I'm very interested in knowing, have you practiced that? No. What exactly is that? And how does that inform your leadership? And how does that inform who you are?
So I wouldn't actually know how, I wouldn't know exactly how to be fake with you or with anyone. That wouldn't work for me. But I am aware that, particularly in this Instagram-y kind of life that we lead, that we all want to put forth this very polished version of ourselves, right? That things are airbrushed, that you've taken 100 pictures and you've picked one that says the right thing. But I feel that's real, and we all know it, and let's just not stress about that moment. But I feel like we also do a disservice to each other to gloss over the stuff that's hard, and the part where everything is. I just feel like everything has gone wrong. I've been on television and my heel has broken. I've been at meetings where, I've said completely the wrong thing, all of those things, and you just have to move on. And to say that those things don't happen, or that it's not incredibly hard to succeed or incredibly hard to do good work, that doesn't help anybody, right? We should acknowledge that it's really hard to do big things. And we should cheer each other on, right? That's what's amazing about Tiffany, is that she cheers me on to do big things, and it doesn't make it less hard. It's still really hard, but that piece of support is really important, and it's important to be honest about the hard parts.
Can you talk a little bit, because I read part of your book, about the squad and the importance of the squad? Because I'm really into the squad.
Yes. So it's funny. So I did not have a squad for a long time, right? When I was sort of coming up in the world, networking was this very glass of Chardonnay, shaking hands kind of awfulness. And There were a few women who I liked and respected and would occasionally call, and I was inspired by them, but I wouldn't say they were like on my speed dial. But there's this new idea of how women come together to help each other, which I have just only recently gotten a peek into, right? And I really think it is led by millennial women, and this idea of sisterhood and collaboration, not competition, right? And that the idea that if you have power and I have power, there is more power in the world. Not that it's a zero-sum game, which is a very, sort of old-fashioned way of thinking, that there's only room for one. But I really feel like, I don't know, do you guys go to a lot of networking events and a lot of groups, and you all are like, Levo is a squad, right? It helps you have a squad of women who are going through what you're going through together. And I think that, I don't think your squad is not your best friend, right? Your squad is not the girl who you're calling up and like going over endlessly about what's happening on your dates, or like what's, your whole, she doesn't know everything about you. Your squad is a chick who's there to help support you do amazing things in the world. I don't know. Do you feel your squad? Are you all identifying who's the one girl that you call or the one woman who you call? And it doesn't always have to be someone you see all the time. I actually think it's better if it's someone who you know professionally, who is generous with you and who you can be generous with. And that's the kind of support that you need. We need, we're all in this together, sister.
Absolutely. Are we getting a signal?
Are we getting a signal? Was I getting a signal? Okay. Well, can I ask Tiffany one more question? Because this is the question that I asked, that she expected me to ask her first.
Now I don't remember what it was.
Well, so here's the thing that I think that I want to know, because you seem so sure of your purpose, and you seem so focused and driven and put together in a phenomenal way. But I want to know that if I could solve one problem for you, what would that problem be? What's the thing that drives you bonkers that you just wish somebody had a magic wand and could solve in the world?
Well, today, I wish you could make Hillary president tomorrow, and we could just all get this over with. But I think, the honest answer, so this was the first question that was on there, so now I remember, it was the first question that was on there, and the honest answer, what first came to me, was that if there was a way, Anne, that you could wave a magic wand and support me in a challenge that I have with my daughter, it would mean the world to me. My daughter is 7 years old, and the biggest challenge that I have right now with my daughter is that she consistently wants things that she doesn't have, just in terms of her identity. So for example, right now, she really wants long hair. She's obsessed with long hair. And not that long ago, we were in the back of a taxi, and there's a taxi TV, and she was watching the whole loop of the taxi TV, and she looked at me and she said, "Mommy, every woman on the taxi TV has long hair." I said, "Really?" She said, "Yeah." So then I watched the whole loop of the taxi TV, and do you know what? Every single woman in the loop had long hair. And I looked at her and I said, "But Ekua," that's her name, I said, "Mommy has short hair. I don't have long hair." I said, "Don't you think that Mommy's beautiful?" And she said, "Of course you're beautiful, but you're not on the taxi TV." And what she's saying to me is, you keep telling me that I'm beautiful and that I don't need to have long hair and I don't need to have these things, but I'm making observations about the world around me, and the world around me is telling me what I'm supposed to be in order to be beautiful. So don't act like I'm the one who's going crazy. And so my biggest challenge, I think, for me in particular, is that I don't understand how the same person whose life's work can be advancing women and girls, I don't understand how the same person who can help launch a girls' middle school that has graduated classes of girls who are confident and who are critical thinkers, the same woman who can lead a national women's leadership organization and who can speak to thousands of women a year and who can coach and mentor and have women reach out to me all the time to talk about the difference that I make in their life. How can that same woman not, with the one little girl that is literally assigned to me in this lifetime, why can't I teach her to love herself?
You can, and you are.
That is my one challenge.
What you want is the world to help teach her to love herself,
well,
right?
That
The
would be
world,
awesome.
right? You want the world to work that way for you. I think that that's actually...
I need a squad for that.
I think everybody here actually can really help with this idea, because I do think everybody wants to feel validated and to see themselves reflected in the world. And I think your daughter is focusing on hair because it's the thing that's most important to you when you're 7, maybe older sometimes. But I think I do think that idea of coming outside of your own perspective and everybody acknowledging how can we all take part in that and making the women around us feel validated and feeling part of the world that we live in is something that's like phenomenally important, right? Important in the back of taxi TV, important on billboards in Times Square, important in the media that we watch, important in the stories that we tell. So I don't know. I feel like I don't have a magic wand, but I'm glad that you said that, because I think we all want to feel validated from youngest to oldest.
Thank you for validating me.
Oh, absolutely.
We should open it up. I can't see very well. There's a young woman sitting right here.
How do you both of you guys deal with the guilt? How do you push it away? For example, when your son had that rash, how do you deal with the guilt? How do you handle it so that it doesn't consume over every part of you?
So the question was, how do you manage the guilt? And she gave the example of, my son with his rash. Do you have a response to how you manage the guilt? I know how I manage it.
I just want to know what you're guilty about, what you feel guilty about not doing or doing.
So, for example, working out in the morning, you want to be everyone. But there are occasions when sometimes you can't get up at 5 a.m. in the morning to get that workout in. And maybe you'll get it in later, maybe you won't. But it's there. Or trying to be everyone, trying to be that ideal image of that 16 you had. And there are times where it's like you take one step forward, then you take 2 steps back.
Yeah, you do.
So I did an experiment. I was once working with a group of women, and all I was actually trying to do was do an exercise around time management and how we manage our time. And the first part of the exercise was to ask the women to write down in an ideal day everything that they expected that they would or should accomplish. And I literally said every single thing, like working out if you're going to work out, lying in bed thinking about how you should be working out, which sometimes takes 20 minutes, alone, getting your makeup on, deciding what you're going to wear, every little thing. And once we had exhausted the list, we then went through the exercise of just writing next to that thing how much time we thought it would take, in an ideal world. And you won't be surprised to know that when you add up, when every single woman added up all of the things, it amounted to more than 24 hours in a single period, and only half the women had sleep on their list. So part of what I think is really important to understand is that our perception and our expectations about what we should be accomplishing are literally inhuman. Like, no human being could accomplish what we imagine we're going to accomplish in one day. And I find that to be very helpful, because it helps to manage that feeling of I'm not doing enough when with absolute shadow of a doubt, if I did this exercise right now with this group of people, it would probably lead to the same result. And that's why I think that really getting clear about what matters most to you is so important, because without being clear about what matters most to you, you don't have a filter by which to decide what are the things that really are going to help you to achieve that purpose and those outcomes, and what are the things that still need to get done, but it's really not the end of the world if you don't do them, or if they don't get done, or you laugh because they shouldn't even have been on your list entirely. So if you don't have a mechanism, if you don't have a system of looking at the list and saying, that's not going to help me advance women and girls, that's not going to help me develop a really healthy all-in partnership, that is definitely not going to help me raise conscious global citizens, I'm putting that to the side for today, then you don't have a mechanism, I feel, to manage the emotional stress of guilt. That's how I manage it, and that's why I always start with what matters most.
I'm sorry, I'm cheating because I know you very well. But I want to ask
This
the
is
follow-up.
Whitney Frick, my editor from Flatiron, who has read the book many times.
I want to ask the follow-up question to that because this is something I personally have really struggled with in my life. And you guys touched on it a little bit when you talked about trying to do all the things that are on your to-do list, and then at the end of the day, feeling like you haven't gotten anything done. And I think we use this term like working smarter, not harder, but I think it's really hard to know when you're working smart and when you're working hard. And Tiffany, you briefly touched on the law of comparative advantage, and I want you to unpack that a little bit right here because I think it can help us focus on figuring out what really matters. So can you talk about the law of comparative advantage and what that is?
Yes, absolutely. So the law of comparative advantage is an economic principle that I learned in a management class that one of my bosses sent to me years ago. And basically, the law of comparative advantage says that just because you can do something faster and better than anybody else doesn't necessarily mean that it's a good use of your time to do it, which for me, as a bit of an A-type personality who really wanted to get a lot of things done, was very internally hard to grasp. But what I realized through understanding this principle is that so much was always on my plate because I really did feel like, well, if it all needs to get done, I can do it faster and I can do it better, so I might as well just go ahead and get it done. Well, inevitably, if you do that, everything is going to always stay on your list and you're going to be in a perpetual state of guilt for not getting it all done. So what I think is really important and what I learned and what I talk about in the book is really getting clear about the fact that there are some things that only you can do, and that there are a lot of things that can be delegated that won't be done as well as you could do them, but that really will help for everyone to get things done more efficiently, and that will help to develop and give opportunities to the people around you. So for many years in my career, I was a nonprofit fundraiser, and I'm also a writer. And so every year, you get these letters from, nonprofit organizations asking for money, and those annual appeals need to be written. And I would always think, well, I'm the writer and I've written a million of them, so let me just go ahead and write them. But my highest and best use in terms of raising money and meeting the goal was actually meeting with donors one-on-one. That's something that not everybody on my team could do. So the law of comparative advantage is really about getting clear and really being conscious of the fact that just because you can do something better and faster doesn't mean it's the most efficient use of your time, and really letting go of everything having to be done the way that you want it to, which leads to a whole other concept, which I won't get into.
But one of the things that you said delegate, but I think sometimes it's outsourcing. And so I said to Tiffany just before we sat down that one of the tricks that helps me, my law of comparative advantage, is if I get a blow dry on Monday and I can make it last till Friday, that's like 35 minutes every morning that I get back for myself. And frankly, if somebody else is blow drying my hair, then my hands are free to like send emails and like read something or, drink extra coffee. And I think this is like a brilliant idea. And then I said to Tiffany, like, this is my amazing trick. And she's like, yeah, I know. She's like, and she's like, NPS Black women have known this trick for a really long time. And I was like, oh yeah, it's still a good one. I didn't invent it, but it's still a good one. But I think that this idea that like there are some things that not only do you delegate, but that like it's okay to throw some money at if it's going to free up time or your energy, right? Like a cleaning person, right? Like if you're not cleaning your house, I actually think there's so many ways that it's super affordable these days. Handy is a big deal, right? You can split it with your roommates. The blow dry is a big deal for me. ClassPass, I think, is one of those that lets you, right? You're all nodding for ClassPass. But I think that there's just sometimes you don't have to do it. You can just pay somebody to do it. And if you think about it, that money is well spent. It gives
or
you
you
space.
Could just let it not be done.
That too.
Hi. So I was listening to Elizabeth Gilbert talk on a podcast about passion and curiosity, and how she used to advocate that everyone find like their ultimate passion, and then realize that there are some kinds of people that are more just curious about multiple things and don't necessarily have one driving passion. And so my question is, for those of us that identify as that latter type of person, do you have thoughts or advice on living a big life and finding a purpose?
So I actually think that it sounds really hard to find your purpose and your passion. Like every time Tiffany tells me her purpose and her passion, I think, oh my God, that's amazing. Like I asked the question I asked tonight, like, how did you get there? I think that sometimes it sets the bar too high and that you find yourself kind of paralyzed. And so what I think is an easier reach is this idea of what's meaningful to you. And it doesn't necessarily, there's not just one way to express what's meaningful to you in the world. You could do it in any way, but it's like, I don't think it's as hard to answer that question, right? What matters to you? What are the things? And it helps you, just like you said, yes, on the to-do list, right? It helps take things off your list when you think about what matters and what's meaningful.
I would also say one of the things that I'm learning and growing with is the fact that I'm raising children with someone who has a totally different parenting style than I do. And while I feel very much that you can lead with passion and purpose, and I'm very interested in what are our kids passionate about and how can we cultivate their passion, I live with someone who has a completely different notion of how passion is cultivated. My husband believes that you can't be passionate about anything that you haven't developed enough proficiency in to appreciate. Right? So he would say passion is rooted in excellence, that you have to have done something enough times, that you have to have some intimacy with it, that you have to have known it in some way in order for you to be passionate about it. And so he believes that we should just force our kids to be excellent at certain things, whether they like it or not, because that is the way to instill passion. And in the beginning, I thought it was so cruel. And there are so many times I'm sitting at the table and I'm like, oh my God, he's going to make them hate math. He's like making them do math. But I have to say that there are times when I experience the swagger and I experience the confidence and I experience the passion for math or for piano that I know they were screaming and crying that they didn't want to do because they know it and they feel good about their proficiency and their excellence. And I do want to say that I think that's part of the reason why women of previous generations were able to be fulfilled, even though they may not have been in careers where they were leading with passion and purpose. It's because they were excellent and developed a level of proficiency at what they did. And I also think that that's another way to get to passion. So I respect all avenues and all journeys that lead to passion in whatever form they come.
Hello. My question is quite personal, but I really appreciate your transparency, so I'm going to go ahead and ask it. So, like you, Tiffany, I get up very early, 5 a.m., and I love it. I love mornings. They're kind of my own time. I'm thinking about moving in with my boyfriend, who is the opposite. He's a night owl. He stays up very late. And I think we were kind of like, oh, this is great. This means we'll still have alone time. But I recently read that it's much healthier for couples to go to sleep at the same time and get up at the same time because we're so busy during the days we never really have any time together. So that's a way you remain in sync. And so this is a specific example, but I guess my overarching question is, how do you balance alone time and time with your partner? And how do you differentiate times that you're at home together between actually spending quality time together? And how do you make time for that?
What do you do together that's like when you're together?
Yeah.
I don't know. We go out to eat. We walk a lot. We like to go to Central Park. Yeah, so I guess still doing that kind of thing. But I feel like, I guess my concern is, if you're together so much more because you live together, are you not going to feel the urgency to then go do those other things?
So I will start by saying that next year I will celebrate my 20th wedding anniversary. And I start there because you get tired of people that you've been with for a long time. And I think that being separate and apart is one of the most delicious, healthiest things for a relationship. It's kind of like, how can I miss you if you don't go away? And I really advocate for, I'm thinking about, what if I went to bed with him every night and then we got up every morning and together, and if we went to work out together and we did everything together.
Fought over the bathroom together. Are you done in the shower yet?
I think that that chemistry that you have in the beginning of a relationship that makes you very excited to be with someone, like all that goes away. And the only time I've experienced it coming back in the 20 years is when we're not together. That's the pattern that I've experienced. So I would say, if you have different patterns in terms of who likes to get up in the morning and who likes to go, I think it's better for you each to respect your pattern and your flow, and for you to carve out time to spend together if that's important to you. But I think what you're doing right now is great. And my husband would love to hear, I'm sure he's watching this on Facebook Live, and he's like, yeah, because every night when I fall asleep on the couch and you tell me that I'm supposed to come to bed with you, yeah, you just told everybody that that's okay.
Yeah, so you're not winning that fight.
Yeah.
I think walks in Central Park and dinner sound way more important than than going to bed together.
Thank you. I just have a question. Kind of your taxi story inspired this question, but I think you're both kind of in a unique position to answer this. As women who worked in media and now as mothers, where do you kind of see this generation of, I guess, Gen Z, 7-year-olds, developing their perception of beauty and understanding of, I guess, stereotypes? And how do you have conversations with them about the things that they see in the world? And if so, how are those structured?
So I'm just going to pipe in quickly because my daughter is 2.5, so I'm at the other end. But she said to me yesterday, I need makeup. And then I immediately deleted YouTube. She's 2.5. I deleted YouTube Kids immediately because there was some weird Elsa makeup tutorial. But we actually talk about that, and it's very interesting. I'm just at the beginning of how you understand what it is to be a woman. And when my daughter comes in and I'm putting on my makeup, I'm really careful to make it fun for her. And I can't. This girl is actually obsessed with makeup. She wanted chapstick. That's how we got her to get rid of the pacifier. It's like this. I actually think makeup is super fun. And I am actually a huge proponent that makeup is power, right? It makes you feel confident. It is self-expression. For so many women, it is their path to success, right? Entrepreneurship, beauty is a largely women-run business, and so I'm not down on makeup at all. But I am aware if my 2.5-year-old says to me that she doesn't feel pretty about it. It's like these conversations about feeling validated and feeling beautiful in your own skin are really important. Just today in my newsletter, I wrote about Alicia Keys, who I'm so inspired is not wearing
Subscribe
makeup.
to the newsletter. Subscribe to Badass Babes. It's amazing.
But even more importantly, the woman who wrote "We Should All Be Feminists," she is now the spokesperson for a makeup line in the UK. Like that is amazing, right? I don't think the two are in conflict with each other. I think we just have to focus on the positive parts of validating women's experience and making them feel confident.
As you could tell from my question, from my response, I'm overwhelmed by the question that you just posed and haven't quite figured it out. The one reassurance that I have is, one, my mother told me all of these same things, and I seem to have had the same difficulty that my 7-year-old has right now, listening to her and really understanding it and internalizing it. And the other is that all of the girls in our lives are watching us, and they're listening to us, and they're observing us. So part of my last resort is honestly to just focus on, Tiffany, how do you feel about yourself? What are the messages that you're sending to yourself? How do you present yourself? And to hope that one day she'll, look back and say, I learned this, I got this from my mom. So it's for me at this point, it's really about modeling, because unlike yesteryear, I'm not sure that we can really protect our daughters and our sons from the messages that they receive externally. I just think it's so prolific. And as soon as they start having relationships and friends and play dates, it gets introduced. And I could give you so many examples about fingernail polish and what other people are doing and what other mothers are letting their children do. And I'm like the meanest mother on the planet. So I think I'm just going to focus on trying to be the best person that I can be, and trying to be confident, and trying to reassure myself, and hope that it catches on.
Amen.
We have a question from Facebook. Okay, so first of all, thank you, Badass Babes, Tiffany Dufu, and Ann Shoket. With all of your success, do you experience doubt, fear, lack of confidence at times? If so, how do you deal with those feelings?
All the time. You deal with them the way, I don't know, do I deal with them different than anybody else does? You pull yourself together and put one foot in front of the other and just move forward. I don't know.
Well, number one, I speak them out loud. So if I'm nervous, I tell the entire room that I'm in front of that I'm nervous.
Yeah, that matters.
And I talk to other people about it, and I say to people who I'm talking to, I'm really concerned, I'm very nervous. I express my vulnerability.
I'm super intimidated, right? I think if you say it, it goes away.
Yes. It does. But also you get affirmed. So the great thing about human nature is that we want to affirm other people. We want to support other people. So as soon as you express your vulnerability, as soon as you express your fear, unless you're just dealing with a jerk who you should probably extricate from your life, that person is probably going to say something pretty empowering and pretty supportive of you.
Thank you both for being here today. Of course, I applaud both of you for all of your success and obviously empowering women. But I guess, how do you maintain all of the empowerment and ability to motivate other women while also maintaining a competitive edge in your professions and life, and just a general persona about both of you?
I don't know. I feel it's funny. You say a competitive edge, and I actually think that I think the women around me, the people I surround myself with, the support helps me succeed, but also takes away that idea of competition, right? That I don't feel like I'm racing in someone else's lane. I feel like I'm in my own, and I think that really changes. It's your squad, right? It's your tribe. It's the people who love and support you and get you. One of the things about your squad that I didn't mention, but I think is really important, is that sometimes it is really hard to find real life human beings around you who understand what it is, what your vision is in the world, and it's hard to find that support. I often think that the people that you allow into your social media feed, the people that you're following on YouTube, the people that you're like obsessed with on Instagram, like those should all be supportive of you and your dreams as well, right? If you look at anybody's pictures and you think to yourself, ugh, that person is driving me crazy, or ugh, I can never live up to that person, delete. I think that's a really important piece of feeling supported and validated.
I was trying to understand where your question was coming from. So, I am the cumulative investment. Like what you see in front of you is a cumulative investment of women, of a lot of women, and a few good men, one of whom is stepping out of the door. Thank you, Richard Pine. But mostly women who have taken the time to give me opportunity, open doors for me, give me opportunities to fail, rake me over the coals when I have done it, but not fired me. And I feel very much that I'm the product of women supporting other women. I also am successful because of a spirit of abundance that I have with other women. Like I literally make money off of women supporting other women. Let me give you a very specific example. Part of my economy is that I'm a public speaker. And the interesting thing about public speaking is that once you deliver a high quality product to a room full of people, the likelihood of them having you come back year after year is very small. If you have an annual conference, you have someone come, they speak, and then you need to find new talent. When someone calls me and they say, Tiffany, we want you to come to our conference, and I look at my calendar and I realize I can't do it. It's Women's History Month and everyone, I'm booked for that day. The first thing I say is, can I help you find another phenomenal woman to fill this slot? And they say, of course, because that's going to make their job easier. And I have a list of women who I say, I really think that you should think about Reshma Saujani at Girls Who Code. She's really good. And I pitch the women who are on my list. And the client is incredibly grateful. The next year, who do you think the client is going to call? When they need to fill that slot again for their conference, they're going to call me, and hopefully early enough that I can actually do it. And when Reshma, right, has someone call her and they say, we want you to come, and she can't do it, who do you think she's going to call to say, I really think you should have my friend Tiffany Dufu come and speak. She's absolutely amazing. So I've built my practice off of really investing in women, us supporting one another, not just in terms of rah, you're so awesome, but transactionally supporting one another. And I don't know any other way to do it. And quite frankly, we live in a world where even with the anomalies that we have, like a Barack Obama, largely when you look at leadership in this country across every sector, at the highest levels of leadership, around the big wooden or marble tables with the beautiful plush leather chairs, there are people sitting around them who are largely male, they're largely white, they're largely straight, they're largely able-bodied and wealthy, and they do that. That's how they got there. They support one another. So today, if it were not for calling Ann and saying, Ann, can you please join the Heleo Network? Like, I need you, you're my tribe, and I need you in this tribe. And them giving me opportunities and me giving theirs. And that's why the whole concept of the squad I thought was brilliant and wonderful, because I really feel that as women, we spend so much time putting our head down and doing the work and trying to achieve really great results and making it so much more difficult for ourselves when if you can come from a spirit of abundance and if you can develop really solid relationships, you can get so much further faster. And I just think it's a beautiful thing. But when you benefit from that and you see it and you know it, it's easy. It makes perfect sense.
All right, guys, that was amazing. Thank you so much. And I think we have at least another 10 minutes, maybe more, of wine and cocktailing and hanging out. And we want to make sure that we balance the conversation with cocktails. So we're hoping you guys can stay around, yes. have some more glasses of wine. And guys, that was phenomenal. Thank you so much. Do you have any last thing? Are you guys good?
Yes, I just want, well, first of all, I want to acknowledge all the people on Facebook Live, particularly because the response to this event was enormous. We had nearly 3 times as many people who wanted to be here as could fit in this room. And I was very humbled by that. Ann was very humbled by that. So I just want to thank the local Levo community. And I just want everyone to know that we're here for you. And we really appreciate your interest and we hope that you're watching. And thank you for watching.
Thank you.